he called me and told me that he was getting extended. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And he's like, I have to stay here longer. And I'm like, how long do you have to stay? And he's like, I can't tell you a date, but I can tell you that, he's like, well, I really don't want to tell you anything because I don't want to get your hopes up. And so obviously I'm crying and I'm like, what? And I said, will you be home for the wedding? And I said, my parents are paying for one wedding. They've already told me. So if you're not there, I'm going to have to go find someone quickly. So are you going to be there? And he goes, he's like, yes, I will be home for the wedding. He's like, I'll tell you that.
Welcome to Couples Unfiltered, a podcast where we talk about love, loss, relationships, and the journey. I'm Lionel Salisbury.
I'm Natalie Galley Salisbury. Almost said my name wrong. Y'all know who we are. Before we get started on today's episode, please keep in mind that we are not licensed therapists, and anything we discuss here are solely based on our opinions and our own life experiences.
Yes, ma'am. Did you know that San Diego boasts the second largest population of military families in the United States? Today, we are honored to welcome our first military couple whose story is sure to resonate with many of you. They exemplify resilience, service, and compassion. Please join us in welcoming Randall and Heather Parkes.
Oh, thank you. Thank you, guys.
I didn't know we were the first.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I wore a different shirt.
Buttoned it all the way up to the top. Well, we want to tell you guys that we first met them. We used to be neighbors, like immediate neighbors, like in the same neighborhood. And we would see each other at local events and kind of just passing by hi. You know, we kind of knew who you guys were in social media stuff. But then we started to kind of interact a little bit more by through charitable events. We ran into each other a few times. And there's always been this kind of like idea of these guys they have a lot of similar interests as us. Mm-hmm. And you guys do a lot of the same things that we do. And we decided that we needed to get to know you a little bit better. So having a little chat and talking at the house and getting to hear your story was awesome. So we decided you guys would be perfect to talk to on the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. We're very happy to have you here.
We're very glad to be here. And it's been great getting to know you guys outside of like the group events and all the charity work and all the neighborhood stuff. So it's been awesome.
Well, so as we begin, let's talk to you, Heather. Tell us who you are, where you from, how you grew up, and who were you before you guys met?
I'm Heather Parkes, and I grew up here in California, in Del Mar. And I know a lot of people from that live in California are not really from here, but I'm literally from here. And I grew up with a mom and a dad and a half sister and a full sister. And the half sister lived in Chicago with her mom. So my other sister, Kirsten, and I were like thick as thieves because we're only 16 months apart. Yeah. So very close. And we grew up here. I am a mom. I have two kids, we're parents, but that's mine. I love being a mom. That was always like my lifelong dream, was to like be a housewife and take care of the kids and like be like an updated June Cleaver and
really updated.
Yeah, really updated, totally. And I volunteer on the PTO, lots of charity events. We love to give back and
Soccer mom car.
Oh, I drive a minivan now.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, it's my fourth minivan, and I love a minivan. People knock it, but it's like, oh my gosh.
You get inside and you forget that you're in a minivan.
Yeah,
he wouldn't even go test drive one with me. And then when the kids were little, he's like, do you want to take the van? And I was like, duh. Like, but yeah, no, it's great.
Is my priority.
It's great, yeah. So I grew up here. My parents actually live in the same neighborhood that we all used to live in. And we're super close. My sister lives in San Marcos, like 5 minutes away, and we're all still really close. So that's really pretty much me.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, how did you and Randall meet? Or what is your account?
Your version.
We met at Coyotes in Carlsbad, And my friend, roommate at the time, Megan, we lived in Encinitas and we wanted to go out, but not like out. Like we wanted to go to happy hour and be like mature and then go home. It was like a Friday.
Yeah.
So we went to happy hour and then we decided we wanted to go out more. So the whole happy hour and go home early didn't work. So we went to happy hour and then we're like, let's go somewhere else. Let's go to Coyotes.
Which is a bar.
Which is a bar in
Okay.
Carlsbad. Yes, it's a bar in Carlsbad. So we went, got spruced up a little more for like our night outfits. And then we went to Coyotes and it was still early, right? Because we did happy hour. So it was probably like 6:30, 7. Which Coyotes used to not like start taking off till like 9:30, 10 at the earliest, right? So it wasn't super packed. So I was there, we're hanging out, talking to other people. And then I saw Randall out of the corner of my eyes. And I was like, oh. And my roommate Megan was like, what? I'm like, oh, that guy, he's staring at me because when I look at him, he's looking at me. So I know he's staring at me.
That's what happens.
Yeah.
That's how it works.
So then I like went to the bathroom and walked past him and then I came back and I was like, oh yeah, he was checking me out. And so then finally he mustered up the courage to come talk to me. And then I didn't call him back when he gave me his number because I knew I liked him. And I told my friend Megan that I was going to marry this guy. And she's like, Heather, you're crazy. And I was like, I know, but I really am going to marry this guy. So I didn't call him back because I didn't want to get married. I was going to like focus on me and go to cosmetology school and it was all going to be great. And
Now, you were going through a transition of your own at that time, right? So you were being cautious.
Yes.
You had just got out of a breakup with a boyfriend.
Yeah.
I remember you saying that.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
This
broke up with the
mindset of the
boyfriend.
strong female, independent woman.
Yeah. He was
not
in
gonna
the
let-
Navy.
Yeah.
I broke up with him and then met this troublemaker Marine over here. And then, just we met. He kept calling me. I didn't answer because I didn't want to talk to him. I was going to focus on me. We just broke up, like go to school, do me. And then I was out again at Coyotes a different night and with my roommate Megan, who I was with when I met him, and then my sister Kirsten, and he called again and he left a voicemail, which he had been doing before. I just ignored it. But for some reason I played it this time at the bar, which, in the bar, it's hard to hear. I'm like, hello.
Yep.
And the voicemail was like, if you don't call me back, I'm going to delete your number. And I'm like, oh, that's rude. Like nobody deletes my number, even though I didn't answer any of his calls.
Yeah.
So he had the right to feel that way, but no, I was irritated. So I called him back and I said, well, if you want to come meet us, we're at the bar again. So, we're like 23. Like,
It worked out.
what we're doing. Come join us. And he did.
Showed up.
And
huh?
then the rest was history. We're like together all the time. Our first date was at Ruby's Diner. It was like our first real date, not at a bar. And it was on the pier in Oceanside.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
in Oceanside, it's not there anymore.
No, I know.
Oh,
It's so sad. We're still going strong. So it's okay.
We're going to rebuild it.
Yeah. We even got engaged there because that was like our first date.
Wow.
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So?
Nice.
I love it. So, Randall, how about you? Tell us how you grew up.
So I, my mom had me when she was in high school, which subsequently, so I'm sure you'll discover this throughout the podcast, but Heather and I grew up very differently. She gave birth to me while she was in high school, subsequently didn't finish high school. My dad ended up joining the Navy. He did a stint in the Navy. We lived in, we kind of lived all over. I remember living in, some of my earliest memories are him being stationed in Corpus Christi, Texas. And then, they ended up getting divorced. They had 2 kids together, my sister Erica and I. And then I just really, he just kind of bounced around. My dad had custody of me growing up until about the 7th grade. And then I ended up moving in with my mom in my 7th grade year. I lived with her 7th, 8th, 9th grade. And then in 9th grade, I kind of had enough and all the moving around. And I told Heather this, probably shortly after we met. I was like, except for sophomore, junior, senior year, I had never gone to the same school more than more than 2 years in a row. So I kind of, like every grade I was at a new school, which probably made me fairly prepared for the military.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, so I joined the Marine Corps right out of high school in 2001, July of 2001. And I was an infantryman when I first joined. I ended up lat moving after around my 4-year mark to do parachutes. So I started working with parachutes. And then right around that time, 06 time frame is when I met Heather at Coyotes. See, Coyotes back then was like
It was a place.
it was the place. It was like there was like a bunch of like surfer dudes in there, like blondes,
Lots of Marines.
and then you
Yeah.
just sprinkle in a bunch of Marines.
Yeah.
And my buddies, Frankie T and Mark, they were bouncers at Coyotes. So what I'd usually do is I'd go out, do the whole crawl in Carlsbad, the Carlsbad crawl, and I would start at it was called Tom Gibblin's back then. It was an Irish pub. It was super chill. They had like live Irish bands in there.
Oh, wow.
All the bartenders were Irish with the whole accent and everything. At least I thought they were.
For the night, they were getting paid to have that accent, right?
And then you'd have a couple beers there, and then you'd make your way to Coyotes. And then if Coyotes didn't work out, then you'd go to
the
Boar's
alley.
Crossing. No, you'd go to Boar's Crossing next.
Boar's
And then if that didn't work out, then the alley was like
the end.
the end of the road.
Didn't work out there, you're screwed.
Oh my goodness.
So we met at Coyotes and we dated for about a year, and then we were engaged for a year, mostly because I had a deployment in there, and then we got married.
Oh wow.
Now, I know that before you met, you were in a relationship that you had just gotten out of, and you were also in a relationship that you had just gotten out of. So you guys were kind of coming into a new relationship with a little, were you hesitant at all about the experience that you had before being so young and getting married? Like, I mean, you guys were 23?
23 when we met, but we were 25 when we got married.
Only because Dr. Phil said your brain's not fully developed till you're 25, and that's why I didn't want to get married, because I was 23 when we met.
Yeah.
And my brain wasn't developed, so don't get married till 25.
I remember that. And I totally remember him saying something about men not being ready till they were 35. And I made my first husband wait till he was 35 to get married.
Well, I apparently missed that episode, Natalie, because I just waited till we were both 25. But we're like a month and a half apart, 2 months apart. So like we're very close in age.
It's kind of rare that you meet somebody that's, that far apart from you, and then it both works out. I'm 25, you're 35, we're ready. That's a lot of distance. 10 years.
It really worked out because, she was dating like kind of older guys before she met me. And then like when she met me, like we wanted to go do the same thing. She's like, oh, you want to go to PB tonight? And I'm like, say less, let's go.
I mean, they weren't old. My God, you're making it sound like they were 20 years older than me. They were like 5 to 6 years older than me.
Yeah, but when you're
even
23,
then, it made a difference.
It's a big
Yeah.
difference.
yeah, I was like, what is his 5-year plan? Not die?
Yeah.
It is a difference.
It does. I mean, I didn't think it did because I liked mature men, and then I meet this wild, crazy kid, and I was like, oh, okay, at least he still wants to go out, because my ex didn't really want to go out. His idea of going out was going to islands and getting a beer. And I'm like, oh, okay, this is it. Okay.
Wow,
But
so-
he was done with that phase of his life. Do you know what I mean? Like, it wasn't a huge gap, but I would notice it then. So like when I met Randall and he wanted to go
Typhoon
out.
Saloon, yeah.
Well, how did you feel about the fact that you were with another military guy? Like, did you have any concerns about like his activity in the military at the time, like being deployed and all of that? Like, I know you guys waited 2 years to get married, but was there a space in
About
between
him,
there?
worried about him being deployed?
Yeah, like just the idea of being
Oh.
with somebody who was like actively in the military.
I mean, my ex had done a deployment, but he was an officer in the Navy and he wasn't like in harm's way
Okay.
as like if that makes sense. So like when I met Randall and we dated, and then we joke that his nickname is like man of action and adventure. And literally he's like always on the go. My dad would joke that he's a hand raiser. So like anytime there was a course or whatever, he's like, I'll go. So he had done a lot of like 6-week trainings, or he was gone for 3 months here. Like, so that gave me a good sense of like, whoa, homeboy's going to be gone a lot. Like, that's hard. Like, I remember being in beauty school and like telling one of the girls, my friend Toby, we would talk about like our relationships and whatever. And we were the two like older ones, because everyone else was like 18 and we were like 23 at this point. She was older than me, so maybe 25. And we would talk about this, and she'd be like, oh my God, my boyfriend's gone all weekend. I miss him so much. This is so hard. She's like, I don't know how you do it. And I'm like, I don't know either, but I feel like he's worth the wait. So it worked out. And then, I was worried with like, dating and then being engaged, and it was hard. I mean, we're not like perfect people, but it was hard to like figure that ebbs and flows of everything. But I was worried about him because he was in combat, and he was in like areas like he couldn't call me. Like, I remember we were at Chili's for dinner, and I was with my sister and some of our friends, and it was just loud in there. And he called me, and I missed his call, and I hadn't talked to him in 3 weeks. Granted, this is like years ago, so technology is very different. But it had been 3 weeks since I even heard his voice. And I missed the call, and I was like, oh my God, I missed the call. And my sister's like, Heather, stop, just call him back. And I'm like, I can't call him back. Like, I can't call him back. That's not normal. And she's like, oh, like, had no idea. And like, I told her, like, I hadn't talked to Randall, but until she was like, well, just go outside and call him back. Like, that's not an option.
People don't understand.
Yeah, you don't get it.
So was he in town when you guys planned your wedding? Like, how did the wedding go? Was he deployed?
No, he was there in the beginning. Like, we got engaged, and then we did like a little planning. Like, he went to meet the DJ with me. Me, and my mom went. But then he was doing workups to deploy. Sorry, he was training to deploy. So then he deployed like 8 months before we got married.
Yeah, I
9
deployed
months?
in November of 07, and then I got back in like June of 8.
And you guys got married in July.
July 26th. And so he then you got extended. So so he was supposed to be home sooner, and then we were going to finish up like all the tedious, stuff of planning a wedding, which it was fine. He was gone because I knew he wasn't going to be like super hands-on, which again, being a control freak, it was fine. Like, I knew what I wanted, it was fine. And he was cool with it. Some husbands like want to be involved. He was cool with it. Yeah. So when he found out he was getting extended, he called me and told me that he was getting extended. And I'm like, well, what does that mean? And he's like, I have to stay here longer. And I'm like, how long do you have to stay? And he's like, I can't tell you a date, but I can tell you that, he's like, well, I really don't want to tell you anything because I don't want to get your hopes up. And so obviously I'm crying, and I'm like, what? And I said, will you be home for the wedding? And I said, my parents are paying for one wedding. They've already told me. So if you're not there, I'm going to have to go find someone quickly. So are you going to be there? And he goes, he's like, yes, I will be home for the wedding. He's like, I'll tell you that, because it's not saying like a date over the phone or whatever.
It's like secretive stuff. Okay.
Wow. Well, let's
secret stuff.
Let's leave a cliffhanger there. So before we see if he actually made it home for the wedding, let's take a quick pause to say thank you to our sponsors, BetterHelp. In life, we all face challenges, especially in our relationships. That's why we're excited to talk about the importance of understanding power dynamics in relationships today.
Now let's talk about power couples. According to Oxford Languages Dictionary, power couples are defined as a couple consisting of two people who are each influential or successful in their own right. But let's not limit this definition to just fame and fortune. Power couples also thrive on mutual respect, support, and effective communication. And that's where BetterHelp comes in.
With BetterHelp's online therapy platform, you and your partner can gain valuable insight into your relationship dynamic. Whether you're struggling to find balance, navigating conflict, or simply seeking to strengthen your bond, BetterHelp connects you with a licensed therapist who specializes in helping couples just like yours.
Imagine having a dedicated space where you and your partner can explore your feelings, address underlying issues, and develop healthier ways of relating to each other. BetterHelp offers convenient, confidential, and affordable therapy sessions, all accessible from the comfort of your own home.
So, if you're ready to take your relationship to the next level, consider signing up with BetterHelp today. Because when you understand the characteristics of power relationships and work together to cultivate a supportive partnership, there's no limit to what you can achieve as a couple.
To learn more and take the first step towards a stronger, more fulfilling relationship, click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/couplesunfiltered for 10% off your first month of therapy with a licensed professional. That's betterhelp.com/couplesunfiltered. Thanks again, BetterHelp, for sponsoring this episode. Now let's get back to today's episode. Wow, so you planned this. You planned a big wedding. You had like a
wedding. We
real
had like
big wedding.
150 people, the
Wow.
bridesmaids, the groomsmen. We had like a sword arch detail, in the
Yes.
military.
everybody
Oh
has
my
their-
God.
Smacked me on the butt with a sword, and my dress was this huge tulle ball gown, and I was like, don't rip my dress, because I've heard someone told me like, oh, their husband did that, or one of his friends did that, and it smacked the butt and it ripped their dress.
Oh,
And I was
wow.
like, don't rip my dress. But yeah, I planned like a whole wedding, and I was freaking out, and like you put deposits down for all this
Yes.
stuff. Like
That's it.
you're
It's
already
done.
prepaying.
Mhm.
Like there's no like, I'm sorry, he's not home. Can
So
I
when-
get my
when
money
did he-
back?
I assume you guys had the wedding that day, but like, when did he show up?
I honestly, it was
Like,
such a blur when you
Maybe
got
like
home.
2 weeks before.
Yeah, like not even
Oh,
like
that's
it was quick. Like it was like,
Yeah.
then you have family coming into town.
Too
It
close
was
to
like
me- for me.
nuts. It was nuts.
Sweating. Yeah.
That's why you had to have
wow.
a backup of like just finding a random person
Yeah,
downtown to be like,
downtown
hey, can
Carlsbad,
you fill in?
Find a few randoms. Could have got one of those kids at that military school to fill in.
Yeah,
Put
I was
the
like,
uniform
hey,
on
can
and
you fill in?
everything.
And there wasn't even Skype, so I couldn't have even Skyped him in. Like
my
it was
goodness.
not gonna happen. But he made it back, and we got married.
Yeah, it was wild. It was a wild
It was a
wedding.
fun wedding.
Yeah, it was fun. Yeah, people still talk about the wedding now.
Open bar and a bunch of Marines, so it was intense.
Dude, the hotel the next day there was just uniform items
Yeah, dress blues all over by like the
all
pool.
over in the hallways and like all over the place. Yeah, it was,
Wow.
it was a good time.
Who's missing a button? Who's missing a belt loop?
Yeah.
Totally. Like, what size is this? Where does it go? Like, our friend Jimmy, his mom was like, Heather, like, messaged me, do you know where Jimmy's jacket is? And I was like, what? She's like, yeah, he lost part of his uniform. I'm like, I have no idea. Like, I wasn't babysitting Jimmy, but it was funny.
Now after you guys got married, now you're a man of action, so I'm assuming there's some more deployments happening right after you guys got married. Now, you were married before, and there was deployments in there. Was there any worry about being married again and going on deployments?
No, I can't say that I was like overly concerned because, I picked the right. You pick the right one, you get what you get, and it was way better. It was like, I think there was probably I got back in I think June, July of 2008, and then I deployed again in December of 2009. Yeah. But yeah, it was night and day. It was totally different. Plus, I was a little bit older, which obviously, according to Dr. Phil, that helps. But yeah, it was different. I was a little bit higher rank by this point, meaning I was a staff sergeant.
Yeah.
And right before I deployed, Heather gave birth to our son Brody. And the battalion was really cool about like me staying back for 30 days to be with her and Brody. And then, so 30 days old, I was on the last C-17 for our battalion to Afghanistan.
Yeah. Baby's born, 30 days, you're back out. How does that changed the dynamic of the relationship?
Oh, well, first, I had a C-section with Brody at Camp Pendleton at the old like Naval Hospital, and it was infected. Oh, this is gross, but I kept saying something's wrong with this side. Like before I even left the hospital, I'm like, your own body, and they're like, no, you're fine. Go home. You're fine. I'm like, okay, well, let's go home. Whatever. And later, I'm like, this side's red. It's irritated. It's not fine. So we go to the 10-day where they're gonna take out my staples, and they're like, the nurse was like, we had Brody in the little baby seat, the car seat, and she's like, you're so infected. And I was like, oh, gross. And she ripped me open because it was starting to heal. He almost passes out. I'm screaming because it hurt. And he had to stuff me with gauze. And you're a nurse, you know this stuff. It was infected. They had to stuff me from the inside out so it would heal from the inside out. And so twice a day, I just had a baby, so it wasn't like we could be intimate or anything, but I couldn't, it hurt to be stuffed, and he had to change it, and that he doesn't do that. He doesn't do blood, he doesn't do shots, which is crazy to think he couldn't handle that. So that was hard right before he left. Do you know what I mean? That added another layer of I just had a baby. And then he's like, oh, great. Now I get to see my wife's guts before I deploy. And I was like, that's okay. But that added that stress.
Stress and concern.
Well, it changes the dynamic of your relationship because you guys go from dating and having fun and being these single people to now everything's very serious. You had medical scare. And then you have a baby. So how does that dynamic change in your lifestyle? Because I'm assuming I'm a civilian, so I'm just assuming that the deployment means you're home by yourself with a 30-day-old baby.
Yeah. I was. We had a house in Temecula, so we lived close by. But my parents also lived in Carlsbad, so I would go there a lot, and I would stay there, but I was up with the baby. He was preemie, so I had to get up with him every 2 to 3 hours to feed him, and nobody took him overnight for me. My mom would sometimes come in the morning if I stayed the night there, which I did a lot, and take him at 5 a.m., which she would wake up for that 5 a.m. feeding, but she was still working at the time, so she would try and give Birdie a bottle and then keep him in a little bouncy seat, and then her get ready, and then I would get up at 6:30 and then take over. But that was so hard, is that interrupted sleep was oh that was rough. And then just understanding that.
But the communication was a little bit better that deployment. I had a Roshan phone, an Afghan phone that I could get phone cards and stuff like that, and I could call. So I basically had a cell phone. We had I think nipper drops in our tents, so I could get Skype. Very rarely I could get Skype.
Yeah, that was very rare.
Bandwidth was limited. Yeah. But yeah, we had phones and stuff like that. So, and I had a computer, so it was more email back and forth.
Yeah.
So the communication was a lot better that deployment. But it was still weird coming home from that deployment, and then I have an 8-month-old. So I missed all of that time.
Civilians, you hear that.
Yeah.
So you're basically coming home and then you're leaving, and then you're coming home and you're leaving, and then how many deployments were there in between the children? You have your kids are all
a deployment apart is what it calls
okay.
it.
Okay.
So after Randall came back, he
makes sense.
We wanted him close. I was pregnant with Kinsley by Birdie's first birthday. So it was so I probably got pregnant around when Birdie was 11 months old, and so then he didn't deploy. He went to DI school, drill instructor school, when Birdie was 1.
1 and some change, and Kinsley was about to be born.
And we sold our house, we rented out our house. So I stayed with my parents because I had a high-risk pregnancy and I needed to get monitored. And that's when I connected with a friend, Sarah, from high school, who was married to a Marine out on Parris Island. And she said, if you have a high-risk pregnancy, do not come out here. And I was like, why? Don't they have doctors? Like, what? And she's like, yeah, but you'll have to drive an hour and a half to Charleston. And that's an hour and a half one way to get monitored. And I was like, well, there's no way I can do that. So I stayed here, had an amazing doctor. My grandma helped like watch Brody for an hour and a half. I'd go get monitored and come back. And he went to DI school, which was what?
3 months.
3 months?
So basically a mini deployment.
Not close.
That was in South Carolina.
Okay.
Yeah, so he went by himself. I stayed here with my parents because we rented out our house. So I lived with my parents. All our stuff was in storage. And then, or no, it moved out with you, right? Or no, not until you graduated,
until I graduated.
DI school. So he graduates DI school. All the house good stuff goes out there. His command, is it command?
Yeah.
His boss let him come back when Kinsley was ready because we had an amniocentesis, so we knew her lungs were developed. She was ready to go. So we had her at 36 weeks, and at least he was there for that because I didn't know if he would like make it back or it was like a scheduled C-section, so which was nice. Like, well, as soon as her lungs were developed, they were going to take her. So that part was nice. And
But
then
I was like a month into my first cycle. So like
he
flying out here, I slept the whole way. And then when I got here, I was just trying to catch up on sleep and all, and then trying to take care of, Heather and Brody as best I could.
Yeah.
With Brody, he was so good. He would like get the baby and hand him to me and burp him and he'd do skin to skin. And then with Kinsley, he's like snoring in the corner. And I'm like, what happened? What happened to my amazing husband? And he's like, I'm so tired. And I was like, okay.
Yes.
I didn't get it though until like 10 days old. I had to get a note from the doctor to fly with Kinsley across the country because she was so little, which I didn't think I had to get a note for, but I got a doctor's note, flew across country with Randall and both kids. And then he was working like crazy hours. So
Never having lived outside of SoCal or outside of San Diego County. And 10 days after Kinsley's born,
it's a little hormonal.
fly her to South Carolina and she just total culture shock.
It is a complete culture shock. And I mean, I was there in Paris Island, and it's very strange coming from, like, I'm from Youngstown, Ohio. So it's city, but that's not city. That's country. You have swamps, you have trailers. And then on top of that, you got the most amount of work that you ever had to experience, and sand fleas.
Yes.
That's crazy.
That's crazy. Drill instructor school is something that, like I said, as a civilian, I never understood until you explained it to me.
Yeah.
But you say it's like a deployment because of the dedication to the young kids, basically, that you guys are training.
Well, so DI school is going through boot camp all over again. And it's like, I'm doing this as an adult. I'm not doing this as a kid. And you have other adults that are guiding you, yelling at you. Yeah. And the stress level is so extremely high. And then once you get done with drill instructor school, you get put with a platoon of, young men. That's young men for us and young ladies for the female drill instructors, between 65 and 95 young men looking at you and like, okay, guide me. From all over the world.
And then you realize you didn't really learn a lot.
Exactly.
In DI school, other than how to not get in trouble.
That's a whole thing.
But just that schedule you talked about, you called it a
working lights to lights.
Vampire schedule.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
People didn't get it until I was like, no, he literally leaves at 3 a.m. and doesn't get home till 8 or 9 at night if he comes home. Because every third night he had to stay on the boys or whatever you called it.
Duty,
and stay on duty and be overnight. Yeah. I thought it was worse than a deployment, honestly, because I felt like for the kids, like when he did get to see him, it was so quick and few in between that like it would almost be better if we weren't around. And then I also, like, as his wife, wouldn't be so irritated when he comes home and I'm like making dinner and I have the kids and I got Brody on my hip and Kinsley in a bouncy seat and I'm kicking it and I'm stirring the pasta and everyone's crying and I'm about to cry, like, because I wouldn't have to deal with that. And then he comes home and he's like, whoa, this is what you're doing? And I'm like, this is my life. Like, you don't really have a glimpse of this because you're gone which not anything to his fault, but he's
Right,
gone
it's
all
the
day.
life, right.
And then I go to bring him dinner and he's like passed out on the floor. And then I'm really irritated because
Yeah.
both kids are crying and homeboy's napping. So like, that's not good, you know, like,
Pretty go to sleep nap.
yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
So it's like you're coming home and this is like a foreign land for you, but it's your safe place. It's where you can, be with your family and everything's good. We're all together. It's all safe. So the sleeping is obviously necessary,
Yeah.
right? But it's just, I can't imagine like having that stress of being on all the time on your job, a job of 16 hours a day or whatever, how long your days are. But then on to your side, it's like, I have 16-hour days too.
Yeah.
And I'm doing stuff that's just as hard
Yeah.
because it's all about, what you're experiencing is your experience, right?
Totally.
And how when people say, oh, I have a bad thing going on right now. Like just say I broke my foot, but there's people who don't have a leg, people who lost a whole leg, and I'm complaining about breaking my foot. Well, it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Your experience is your experience, and you have to deal with what you have to deal with, and the stress levels that we all deal with differently, they really do matter. So yeah, that's a crazy dynamic because I when you guys told me your story, which is really kind of the average story, right? Of people who have this life. This is the military life. Yeah. You're home. If you choose to be home.
Yeah.
And that job to me is the hardest job in the world because I did it for about 18 months and I was going crazy. And I needed to get out of the house and go to work and have, I begged to go to work. Uh-huh. Not that I didn't love my kids, but it was emotional and it was all consuming, and you don't really have adults to talk to, and you're being this patient person all day for these little people.
Totally.
And kind of having a little bit of animosity towards the person who's supposed to be here helping you.
Yeah. Oh, 100%.
And not knowing what they're doing. Not understanding.
Yeah,
all
you're
you
not
know is
there.
they're not there.
Yeah, they're not there.
So-
I don't know where I'm at. I'm at a new state, like total culture shock.
Mm-hmm.
Remember my friend Becca, she's still my like best friend to this day. And she lived next door to me. We shared like a wall, base housing. So nice. You share a wall. And she had a kid Brody's age, Nicholas. And then she had twins, Wesley and Wyatt, and they were 6 months older than Kinsley. So she had him even closer than we had ours. And she had a set of twins. And she'd be like, we're going out. Get the kids. If I can take them both, you can take yours. And I'm like, it's hot. There's bugs. And she's like, Heather, get outside. I was like, fine. But she was really good for me because it made me because you're going to sit inside and sulk and be sad that he's not there experiencing any of this. Yeah. And we called ourselves like sister wives because we would go out together and like do things, which was great. And he was like, I'm glad you're friends with the neighbor.
You need that.
Yeah.
You need that, absolutely.
Well, that's the great thing about military. I feel like that you guys have a community that's just unmatched to...
they don't understand. Like a civilian wouldn't necessarily understand what goes on in this town. The base is a town. You have a commanding officer that's like the mayor of the town, and you have all these people. But it's a small community. It's our little Mayberry. So it's really good.
Yeah.
I mean, it was so nice. Like, it was a community. It was like nobody judged you on where you're from or what you did. It was like everyone was like an equal family. And it was, that is one part I do miss about the military. We were all kind of in the same boat. We were all away from our family. Like, we had Easter and Christmas with all these people that became family. Yeah. Like, it was kind of cool.
It's like
we still kind of have that now. Like, we invite, people that are still in that we served with over, and we have them over. So we still have a little bit of that now.
We do. It's just different.
Well, you crave it, though, because the hardest times in your relationship and in your lives, because you're young and you're starting out having kids, and then being in a relationship, and then in contrast, just trying to figure out what part that relationship plays now in this role of mom and dad and deployed in military and high ranking responsibility, and then you're just trying to figure it out. That's like so stressful. Does the military offer you guys like therapy for early marriages, or did you go through therapy after you were deployed? After you came home and kind of...
No, I think Heather just, she did a good job. Once she met like that one friend, that like kind of cascaded into like meeting all like a lot of the other wives that were my
Your company.
yeah, that were either in my company or that like came in maybe a little bit after me. And then you got really close with those wives, and that like
That was a
community
big
is when it
support.
like really. Plus, the longer you're on that duty, not necessarily.
easier it
Yeah, like you get a little bit more flexibility in time, and you're not working. You're working a lot of hours, but you're not working all the hours. Or when you come home, you're not completely just physically
But after
destroyed.
that duty, we needed, like, we lived as like roommates because we didn't like have a relationship because he was always gone. So like, how do you have that relationship? Like, he didn't even know how to make Kinsley a bottle. And so like those little things, it's like, how do you not know how to make her a bottle? You know, like that's what? But because he wasn't home,
Right.
like, and that's not his fault. So we went to therapy after that, like when we
after that duty station.
after that duty station, and the military does like you can go through military one source, is that what it's called?
yeah.
And they give you like 5 free sessions, and then you can, I think, go to the doctor and get a prescription. I don't know how that all works, but
Right.
I do know the therapist was like, "Oh, you guys are fine. You'll be fine. You just need to learn how to like reintegrate yourself in each other's lives." So, we went, I think, 2 or 3 times, and that was really helpful. And then we were good after that. We read the 5 love language books and like did that stuff. And then he did when he got out of like that session, and then we went to what did we
Second
do after
recon.
that? Second recon, yeah. And then, but when you were done with the military, you went to counseling.
Yeah.
We leave Paris Island.
Yep.
Yep.
And what's the next duty station?
North Carolina,
So-
Lejeune, Camp Lejeune.
Sorry,
Why you didn't like it?
I was never stationed there. I left from Okinawa getting ready to deploy to Iraq. But no, thank you.
Yeah.
I honestly, I thought North Carolina was an upgrade from South Carolina
There
You know
was a
what?
target.
because the weather was
There was a target.
the
And
weather
in
was
South
a little
Carolina,
better.
You had to drive to Hilton Head, which was 45 minutes away for the target. But you better believe I did that.
Hilton Head was very nice. I
Yeah.
would go to Hilton Head as
Hilton
often
Head
as
was
possible.
nice. It felt like getting away. But yeah.
So North Carolina, and then from there, where are we
Yeah,
at?
so I did 3.5 years there. I did one deployment there as well.
Lots of training. He was still gone a lot.
Yeah,
He was
so
home
like
more than like the drill field, but he was still gone a lot. Like, the coming and going was hard.
with the transition from Paris Island to North Carolina, the drill field to back to the fleet,
Yeah.
as we would call it. How did the communication change, or did you learn something through therapy, through what you guys might have missed at Paris Island? How'd you
I think
reintegrate?
Reconnecting,
Yeah.
like, because you get in this. I think we talked about this when we talked before, but you get into this like mode where you're just like trying to get to the next thing. So you're kind of like in a zombie type state. Like, oh, I just need to get to this next cycle. Oh, I just need to get to this next duty station. And then you get there and like, okay, well, now I'm gonna be gone for 3 weeks. I just need to get through these next 3 weeks. But when you come home, it's hard to like turn that off. Like you're like when you're on ship, like when you get in, you take a nap in the middle of the day because you got nothing else better to do after you've been to the gym twice. You call it getting in the time machine, you know, like you're just trying to pass the time. You're always trying to fight boredom and trying to pass the time. So, but when you get home, it's hard to get out of that like mindset or routine and be like present, you know? So it's like, so we needed to like adjust that, you know? And I think even when I left Second Recon and went to San Diego as a first sergeant down there, even down there, I was still kind of in that mode, even though my head was on my pillow every night at home.
And you're back on the drill field.
Yeah, but as a first sergeant, so I'm not working lights to lights, you know, like everybody else. But yeah, I think it wasn't until I retired that I finally was able to like,
Yeah.
you
But
know,
you still have a lot of things on your plate because you guys now you're home together, like making up for all of that time and you guys are working together.
Yeah, it's a lot of together. No, it's good. I haven't killed him yet. He's alive. He's happy.
I'd say the difference now from when I was on active duty and being in that like mode, that zombie mode type mentality, is now like when I'm home, I feel like I try and make the most of being at home. So like I've never been able to coach like Brody's, sports. Like when I saw like Marines doing it, when I was like, man, what do they do? Like, how do they do
How do
this?
you have that time?
Yeah, like I don't have time for that. And now, like in retirement, I coached Brody's lacrosse for 2 years. I didn't know anything about lacrosse, but I knew how to like
Get him in shape.
I knew how to get kids in shape, so that worked out. But it was cool to be involved with him, And then now, like, we both work a lot, but like, I get Brody up. He's 14. Get him up in the morning and take him to the gym, and that's some of our time together.
Absolutely.
Right. Exactly.
So tell us about the working together. What do you guys do?
So we run a real estate business together under Compass. We both work for Compass. We have our own real estate team as a husband and wife team. And I got my license first, like a year before I retired. Was never the plan. Like some guy, I went to this Veterans Beer Club event, and this guy is like, "Oh, you should." After talking to me for a few minutes, he's like, "Oh, you should get your real estate license." I'm like, no. I was like, no, dude, I'm not like a salesy, like gimmicky dude. And he's like, that's exactly why you'd be good at it. And then a couple of my buddies had their license. So I got it. Really, I just wanted like a side hustle to like, make some extra money before I went to business school. And then when I got my license and started doing it, unbeknownst to me, Heather's like, oh, I've always wanted to get my real estate license. And I'm like, really?
Yeah.
So like during COVID, she went and got her license.
I got it. I didn't tell anyone. I just told him. Had all these kids screaming on my driveway because like our house was like the playhouse, which was great, except when I was trying to study. And so I'd bring my kids in for like an hour and be like, go to your room. Mommy's got to study.
Yeah,
you
that's
go
a hard
play.
test.
Like, it was really hard. I thought, oh God, I'm going to fail for sure. Because like 50% or more fail.
Yeah.
It's a high. And I hadn't taken that test for years. I'm like, oh God, help me now. But I passed and I was super excited. But it's been fun to work together. And it's good to see like my strengths and his strengths. And we just kind of counter off each other.
It took us a minute to kind of figure that.
Yeah, I can't imagine it would. You guys have to like really figure out your professional personalities together.
Yes.
Where you're just,
Which is good because once we figured it out, it was totally fine. Which he wanted me to do things like he does, but that's not who I am. And so learning like his marketing is going to be way different than my marketing because we're two different people. So just figuring it out, but it's been nice. And it's nice to connect with other people that are, getting ready to sell their house or buy a house, and other couples. Most of them are couples. We do have single that we help too. And we love them just as much, but it's nice that the guys like seem to, connect, and then the wives connect or whatever it is. So it's been good. I mean, he doesn't like to clean the baseboards like I do. Like I have OCD with that stuff. He's really OCD on like contracts and all that stuff. So it really works out. We figured out our ebbs and flows.
That would be attractive to me if I'm looking for a house with my family, and to have a married couple be my realtors and, thinking of all the experiences they had buying houses. You guys had a lot of houses because you moved a lot.
Yeah.
We did.
And to know that you had those experiences and you could say, well, what worked with when we did it, or when we needed this, were these people there for us? And you guys have that to give as an example to someone else. So that's
Honestly, I think that kind of gave us a competitive advantage in the beginning when we first started doing this business, is that we'd moved a bunch of times and we'd bought and sold, and we kind of had like an idea, at least a more fresh idea of the process. And then our last agent before we became agents, Jeff Jabora, he was a great agent.
Yeah, we love him.
So we really learned a lot from him too. But yeah, it's a cool business. It provides you a lot of flexibility. Once we kind of figured out what our strengths and weaknesses were, like, you know, selling or buying a house is very emotional. It's very stressful. So Heather handles that really well.
That could be the
Where
most
I'm like,
stressful
all right.
thing you do.
Yeah.
It's like one of the top three.
Yeah. In the marriage.
Marriage, kids, and buying a house.
Yeah.
Or selling it.
Yeah, buying or selling.
Or if you hit the trifecta where you sell it and then buy one at the same time, which we've done, which is fun.
No, thank you.
But it's good to have someone that understands that and that actually cares about people and cares about community to be able to buy a house from. You know, that's a very stressful moment. You are giving up a lot of money, and it's good to have people that understand and that actually care.
Yeah.
So, you know, we talk about caring and community. Now, you guys do a lot of things with the community on the volunteer side. So tell us about some of those things.
Well, we like to give back. If you buy or sell a house, we will give back to the school of your choice. We donate a lot to local elementaries and, well, middle and high school too. Volunteer my time, help out where we can, donate to...
You do the STEP project?
I do the Support the Enlisted project, helping young military families because I don't know how they afford life in this economy, especially as they're younger.
Yeah.
So we do like a big toy drive every Christmas. Last year, our whole downstairs living room was covered in toys. It like warmed my soul and made me so happy.
I think we got you guys
Yes,
a doll.
you said so.
And it was so funny because I'm like, there was a doll to choose from Amazon on your wish list.
Yes.
And I'm getting the black doll.
Yes. And you know, some little girl was like, Mommy, it looks like me. I was so happy. Like, you know, like, no, it was amazing.
I was afraid someone was going to break into our house with all these toys.
It was so great
Santa
though.
Claus is a bitter elf.
Yeah, he's coming early. He's taking it. But it was so nice to see like the community feeling good about giving back to the local young military families that really do need to help up right now because it is expensive, especially living here. So we do a lot for them. And then Randall has
I do 0321 day at Ballast Point in San Diego for the Recon Foundation. So the Recon Foundation does a bunch of different things, but their main thing is every year that they do is the Gold Star Family Retreat, where they fly Gold Star families from their home of record to Pendleton to watch the Recon Challenge. And then after the Recon Challenge, they fly them to Oahu, and they stay at the Paul Mitchell Estate, all free, provided by Paul Mitchell and their family. And then, you know, throughout the year, they also do other events for like they could do a Wounded Warrior retreat. They've got a Marine Corps ball actually coming up this year in Dallas with like a pre-ball like golf event and like shooting and all kinds of stuff the day before. So it's going to be kind of cool. But yeah, it's been fun to like partner with the Recon Foundation and kind of have a seat at the table with those guys. You know,
it keeps growing every year.
It keeps growing. Yeah, the first year we did it at Ballast Point, I think we made, or we not made, but we raised $5,000, and then this last year we raised. This was the third year that we did it. We raised like $35,000.
Wow.
So just massive growth. It gets more and more popular every year.
Some of the Gold Star families were there, like the parents of Gold Star families, if you lost a loved one, right?
Yeah. So like you're considered a Gold Star family member if like your dad or your mom or your husband, you know, was killed in action.
Okay.
Then you're considered a Gold Star family member. Or mom and dad, you're considered a Gold Star family member. So it's awesome to be involved in something like that, specifically with the Recon Foundation, because these are guys, some of these guys like I knew, like I served with at the battalion. And it's awesome to see that when they come out, especially on Pendleton, when they come out, all of them are there. And they do a select group every year, a different group every year. And just to see that, like, man, like no one's forgot about us. And that's the coolest part, is like just seeing that people appreciate their their significant others sacrifice, or like some of the Vietnam. We do Gold Star family members from Vietnam.
Oh wow!
And now this, the daughter who was 3 years old at the time is now, a grown adult, and she feels appreciated,
Yeah, still mourning. So,
Absolutely.
well, we want to make sure and give everybody that information.
Yeah. So that's the Marine Reconnaissance Foundation.
Yeah.
That can be reached at http.
Just Google
reconfoundation.org. Reconfoundation.org. Before we close, and of course we want to give plugs to your companies, but you guys gone through a lot of things that people don't really understand, especially when it comes to the military household and being able to have that stickability, to be able to communicate with one another through being worlds apart and being able to stay connected. We asked this of our couples. When you got married, did you write your own vows or did you say the traditional vows? And if so, what would be something that you would add or change?
So we did both. When we first got married, at our big ceremony, we did just traditional vows. But then we renewed our vows 10 years later, just Randall and I and a photographer at the beach in La Jolla. And we wrote our own vows. I don't even remember what they were, but they were good. They were good, but they were just like funny. Like he gets annoyed when I leave my Diet Coke like half drank somewhere or water bottle. It's always like half drink. And he's like, would you stop leaving half? So I said, I promise to stop leaving half drink Diet Coke water bottle, Diet Cokes or water bottles throughout the house.
Yeah.
So those are like kind of funny. I mean, you got to joke around it at 10 years.
Yeah.
And now our anniversary's coming up. And it'll be 16 years, right? 16, yeah.
Lovely.
He's
Yeah.
actually the one that remembers better than I
16
do.
years
which is
married.
great. Yes,
And
married. And so,
18 together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So a long time.
Yeah, it is.
I mean,
A lot's happened in that 16 years.
yes.
Well, hopefully life will start, the waters will start, mellowing out, at least a little the expectations. But you guys got teenagers,
Yeah, gosh.
like early teens, right?
Yeah, 13-year-old daughter. Kinsley, she just turned 13. She's a competitive cheerleader, and I am driving to and from that gym all the time.
Yep.
But she loves it, and I love seeing her shine and thrive in it. And our son, Brody, he does lacrosse. Is he 15? 14.
14.
Jeez, wait, I'm like, wait, is he? Okay, so he's 14 and a half.
And he's going to high school.
Yeah, he's going to high school. I'm like, how do I have a high school already?
Yeah.
Like, so yeah, big changes coming ahead. He's going to, his voice is all like, hi, Mom. And I'm like, oh, like, what happened to hi, Mom?
So strange.
So yeah, you're
Yeah.
going there.
One
So
day they
it's
come
so
down the
weird.
stairs.
Yeah.
I'll wake up in the morning and I hear this man in my house and I get up, I'm like, who's in my house? Oh, that's Jackson.
Yes.
He's only 13 years old and his voice is
Dropping, yeah. It's so weird. It's so weird. My sister still gets creeped out. She's like, why does Brody sound like a man? I'm
Yeah,
like, he's
so weird.
getting old. So yeah, so it's weird. So yeah, Brody is 14 and a half. I'll learn my kids' ages. And he's going to be a freshman and Kinsley's going to be in 8th grade. So they're only a grade apart, so a year and a half apart.
Well, we love it to hear that you guys renewed your vows and also that, you guys are in a place right now that your kids are teenagers where they start kind of not caring so much about what you want. They only care about themselves.
Yeah.
For you guys to be in a place where you're working together and you get to know each other, your relationship, you guys kind of went backwards, but as far as, now you can really get to know each other so that when your kids are grown and they are out of the house, you guys aren't trying to figure that out.
Yeah, that's a good point because we did kind of do it backwards in that aspect, or we had like a brief wild shakeup with deployments and everything. But like we've been really good about like setting date nights and like going to do those things, especially as the kids get older and they need less of us. We're more just shepherd or drivers. But yeah, like it's nice to get reconnected because I have heard a lot of people at the end when their kids are out of the house, they don't even know each other, and that's not a good thing.
I feel like we've gone where in the beginning we were together all the time. We had a lot of quality time. And then when you have kids, just naturally, like sometimes you feel like your relationship just kind of gets put on hold
Yeah.
because your focus is on the kids.
It's a priority.
But now that they're old enough where they can like stay home for a couple hours or whatever, we can go out.
But like, bye.
Yes. Yeah.
And it's healthy for them to see that
Yeah.
because
They're
you guys
cool with
are
it.
giving that
Yeah.
example to them. Like, this is what married people are supposed to do.
Exactly.
We're your parents, but we're married. And honestly, we believe, now, I mean, I couldn't have said this maybe 15, 20 years ago, but he's taught me that really your relationship is first priority because without the foundation, the rest of it will fall apart. And so I'm not saying when there's a train coming and you have to pick a child or a person to pull off the track. I just mean
Yeah.
in your relationship, in your family, your relationship really does need to be the priority. And that's the example that the kids need to see.
Totally. That took me a long time to understand too. Like people would tell you that, but I'm also a neurotic mom.
Yeah.
And so just getting someone like moving to South Carolina and not knowing anyone, I'm not going to just be like, here's my kid, we're going on a date, you know? So like that was hard.
Yeah.
I could have probably done a
balance.
lot better at balancing that for sure. But now we're getting that flow. And yeah, it is important to have a strong marriage before the kids.
Or just have the strategy there, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Strategize together to figure out how that's going to work.
Well, we thank you both so much for being a part of Couples Unfiltered community. We love having this conversation with you, and I know we'll get together soon.
Absolutely.
But we want to make sure that other people get with you as well. So theparkesteam.com, which is a major one. You can follow you on your Instagram.
Yep.
So it's Randall_in_San Diego.
Yep.
And Heather Parkes _realtor. And again, the Marine Reconnaissance Foundation, which is reconfoundation.org. So fantastic. And for us with Couples Unfiltered, please follow us on Instagram at couples_unfiltered. Find us on the web at couplesunfiltered.com and YouTube at Couples Unfiltered.
Making sure he does it right because he, you know.
I know. I don't know how I forget that. It's like, but
You don't forget, you just like,
yeah.
you're not dealing with it on a day-to-day.
Yeah, exactly. So I'm not on the socials as often as I
Well, he
should
has a
be.
W-2 job. I just don't get paid.
But please continue to be a part of our community and share the information with your friends and family. Couples Unfiltered. Thank you for being with us.